Hello, everyone. I hope you've been having a great day. My name is Tom. I've been an eBay reseller for around 11 years. I've always wanted to create a YouTube channel, just never had the time and figured, there's no better time than the present. I figured I'd start off with a what sold video. I'm going to do it for an 11-day period here, as far back as I can go as of the current date, and still find the items in my eBay store. And if you enjoy this, please feel free to like and subscribe, and I will hopefully be creating more of these in the future. So without further ado, I was going to start with my seller summary here. So over this 11-day period, you can see I've sold a little over $3,000 worth of items. It's around 56 items here. My average is around $54 here, which, I'm happy with that. It's kind of typical, usually within the $40 to $60 range on average from what I sell. And I mainly sell fixed price. So then let's get to the items here. So the first item is a lacrosse shaft, kind of a weird one. I kind of sell a little bit of everything. And I actually found this at the Goodwill bins, which is one of my primary sourcing locations. Accepted a best offer of 19 on this. In terms of weight, I probably paid $1.50, something like that. And it actually was a complete lacrosse stick that had the net on top. I took that off and I actually sold that separately. And it did sell, and I think it's coming up in one of the future weeks. All right, second item here, 1967 Ideal Giggles doll. This was a fun one. I actually found this at the bins as well. At the very end too, so, sometimes people will abandon things. And when I say bins, I mean the Goodwill outlets that you'll find where you pay by the weight. And someone abandoned this in a basket at the very end. So I found this maybe an hour and a half in. And the way they do it at my bins is they will roll out new bins twice a day, and they'll close for lunch in between. So there's a huge rush in the beginning with everyone going in, and a lot of people run straight for shoes in other areas and dig through everything. So your chances of finding things get slimmer, the longer things go on. But if you wait long enough, people will throw back items, and this is an example of that. So $40, $39.99, probably into this $1.50 to $3, somewhere in that range, between £1 and £2. So I was pretty happy with that sale. So 1976 Hasbro Weebles Haunted House. Now this is just the haunted house. It's missing quite a few pieces. Condition isn't great. It's not horrible. A lot of the stickers are there. This also came from the bins, and I actually parted some pieces off of this. So this house itself sold for $39.99. And then I also sold like a chimney off it for, I believe, the same price or maybe even a little bit more. So sometimes it's worth it to part some of these things out, because sometimes the parts are worth more than the house itself, or the main unit itself. All right, this came from, I think, a St. Vincent de Paul thrift store. It's a Barbie rolling suitcase, for doll storage. It was relatively large, sold for $24.99. If I could go back, I probably wouldn't have picked this up for that price. I believe when I picked this up, it was quite a while ago, and I think it was selling for a little bit more back then. I typically don't like to pick up larger items unless they're selling for at least $50, just because they're kind of a pain to ship. All right, Apollo transparency film, overhead projector film. So this is the film you would see, in the old days, if you're old like me or older. At school, they'd have an overhead projector, and they'd put these slides and film on top of that projector to, project onto the wall for teaching before, laptops and normal projectors were big. So this is a lot of multicolored film. Picked this up at the Goodwill bins, $15. Probably wouldn't pick this up again. So I probably paid $4 or $5 for it, given the weight, because it was kind of heavy. All right, this is a fun one. So this ski jacket I actually picked up at a St. Vincent de Paul maybe 2-3 years ago. This jacket was actually worn by people who were on the production of this movie called Snow Riders 2. It was a skiing and snowboarding movie. And you can see here there's some salt stains on it. The condition isn't perfect, but I knew there would be someone who was really into this movie that would want to purchase this. So I listed it for quite high. I believe 2 or 3 years ago, I had this up for maybe $400, because I know typically memorabilia from movies like this, like sports movies, can tend to do really well. If you get a jacket, there's a BMX movie called Rad, and if you find memorabilia from that, it can do really well. Some of these niche sports. Anyway, long story short, had it up for $400, didn't sell for 2 3 years. Finally got an offer of 99 on it, and I was happy to accept that. I'm in this for maybe $10, so 10 into 100. I'll do that all day long. All right, so next, Lucchese Heritage Handmade Suede Leather Cowboy Boots. So this is another bin find. This one was fun because on the bottom of the boots, it actually had a price tag from one of the regular retail Goodwill. So I know this came from one of the retail locations. I believe they had wanted $40 for these. Now, cowboy boots can do really well if you get the right brands. And Lucchese, sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, is a good brand. I know off the top of my head. And I think this is one of their higher end or mid-range models, their Heritage series. So, I didn't pay $40. Luckily, they priced it kind of high. No one bought it in the store. It came into the bins, and I picked these up for around maybe $5 to $10. So doing that into 105, all day long. All right, so this came from a church sale maybe a year or two ago. It was a really good church sale. They had a lot of stuff, very, very cheap. I'm into this maybe a quarter. This is a Yu-Gi-Oh toy. Yu-Gi-Oh was a big anime in the 90s and early 2000s. And yep, a quarter into 10. Usually I don't like to sell things under $20, but if I can get them cheap enough and they have a good sell-through rate, I'll still pick them up. And that's what this was. All right, so this is a piece from a Brother printer. This is one of those large printers that can print and scan, do all that kind of thing. And sometimes I really don't like to sell those units themselves because they're really bulky. They get damaged easily in shipping. They're kind of a pain to test. So sometimes if I can pick up one of those units for cheap, or I can pick up parts from that unit, I'll do that and then sell the parts, right? So I'm into this for maybe $5. That's the price at the Goodwill that I go to, the outlet, for heavier items. Printers, they'll do $5. It depends on what you're getting. Vacuums are $7. So I bought it just for this to part out. So I parted out this and a few other pieces. So this piece alone paid for it and more. Only thing with stuff like this is just make sure there is a market for those parts, because you'll look up some printers or some items and there'll be a million parts listed and none sold. So really look at the sell-through rate on these kind of things. All right. So this is a Garmin Forerunner GPS, running GPS you strap to your arm when you go running. This came from Salvation Army. Had it maybe 2 or 3 years. It was in a box for, I believe, like a Polar watch, like a cheaper item. So sometimes I like to look in boxes, even if it's a cheaper item, because you never know what's going to actually be in the box. Usually that goes the other way around. Sometimes you'll find a router or something, and you think it's a good one, you open the box and it's the old one. It's not worth it. But sometimes it goes the other way around too. So I think I paid around $5 for this, and 5 into 50, I'll take that any day. All right, Angry Birds Green Howl Toucan plush. So most of the Angry Birds stuff isn't really worth it. There are some of the harder to find plush or larger ones can hold their value. This one for $19.99, perfectly happy with that price. This was another bins find, so very happy with that. All right, so a 2003 8-foot tall Christmas snowman inflatable. So right now we're in the middle of July or beginning of July, and I'm selling Christmas items. Now I sell holiday items all year round. They sell well all year round, as long as you're picking up good ones. So I will buy, list, ship these all year round. Inflatables tend to do well. Really, I'd say almost all inflatables tend to do well, but of course, look them up, because if they're the really bottom end ones, from Walmart, some of those, won't, but you can see like this wasn't a great brand. This is an older one, which is always good. You want older inflatables or Christmas decorations. New ones sell well too, but it tends to add to value. So $70 for this. I picked this up at the Goodwill bins, and it was probably for the weight $5 to $10. So 5 to 10 into 70, that's good. All right, this is cool. Picked up a bunch of pens and pencils at a Salvation Army a few years back. No, sorry, it was the St. Vincent de Paul a few years back. I actually, these were all individually priced. So this is, I think, priced at maybe $3. I took the whole bag or box of office supplies from the 90s. These were mainly 90s and 80s office supplies. Took it to the manager, asked if they could give me a single price on this. And, he gave me a price, I think $10 on a bunch of these and similar type items. And I was very happy with that because obviously you can see I sold one unit for $40 here. I had these for a long time. You can see I've sold 5 of these over the last few years. Very cool, neon, super 90s design on these. And I do really well with office supplies, vintage office supplies. And the 90s is super hot and has been super hot for, a few years now. So this kind of stuff will sell, especially new and packaged. So gotta keep an eye out for this kind of stuff. So here's the net for that lacrosse racket that sold earlier. So I broke the 2 pieces out, $19.99 and then $24.99 for this one. Very happy with that. This is not something I know a lot about. This is just something I looked up because I know lacrosse is an expensive sport and ended up being worth it. All right, a Lionel Train transformer power control supply. So this is another Goodwill bins find. It was kind of heavier and they made me pay by weight on this. So I want to say probably paid close to $15, $10 to $15 by weight on this. But, I'll do 10 into 60. Sold pretty quick. This was kind of a desirable item. I'll sell train stuff quite often. A lot of people avoid it because they don't think people buy trains anymore, but there is still a solid collector's market for trains. So I do really well with them. As long as you're getting high-end trains, high to mid-range, right? Like Lionel, good brands, Lifelike. They don't have to be super premium, but you don't want the bottom end stuff. All right. Cuisinart FP13 stem. So I like to part items out. This is an example of item I had parted out. I'll buy the food processors and I'll take pieces off of them and sell them. So this is a stem for $12.99. Into this plus the other pieces for the machine for under $5. So one piece here will pay for the whole machine. By the time they all sell, I'll probably make $30 to $50 on the machine. All right, Salomon. A lot of people don't know this brand. I'll often find this still left at the bins after everyone has attacked the shoe section. And that's where this came from. So these are hiking boots. Do really well with hiking boots. $69.99. It's probably $5, $10 at the bin. Very happy with it. All right, anatomically correct infant doll. So these anatomically correct dolls tend to sell well. I don't know what else to say about it. I don't know why people are buying them or what they, I guess collectors. But sold for $24.99. I believe I got this at a Goodwill for maybe $3. So look out for these anatomically correct dolls. They tend to sell well. All right, Quilt Magic. So my wife was at a Goodwill, maybe I think it was the beginning of the pandemic around then, and she found a lot of these, maybe 10, 15 Quilt Magic. So this is just a piece of foam board that you will stuff, I guess, pieces of cloth into to make a collage. It doesn't include the cloth, it's just the foam board itself. And these were all marked at $1. So I told her to pick them all up, 10 to 15 of these. And we've been selling these steadily for the last 2 or 3 years. 1 or 2 sell every month or 2, something like that. And we're getting close to being out of them now. So, $1 to $15. And they're very light and easy to ship. All right, so this is the first sale off of eBay. So I sell, in addition to selling on eBay, I sell on Truegather, Bonanza, Poshmark, Mercari, and if this channel gains some steam, I may kind of create a video on how I do my cross posting and what I list where. So this was a good sale. The nice thing about Together is it just imports directly off of eBay. So you don't have to really do anything special. You know, you just link up the two and it'll import wherever you list on eBay. But this camcorder was untested, and when they're untested, I tend to, you know, blow them out for pretty cheap. So if this was working, I think this one was a $50 or $60 one, maybe 70. Untested, I sold it for $21 here, and I was perfectly happy with that. All right, so master stuff, anything with this little symbol here of the United States in yellow with the flag sticking out of it is for the Masters golf tournament. Now, I don't know a lot about golf. I do know that the Masters is one of the largest tournaments and is quite collectible. So this hat sold for $24.99. It was also an American Needle, which is a good hat company to look for. They make quality hats. So, and also Master stuff that's green like this tends to do really well. I think it's like the color of Masters. I think they give you a green coat if you win it. So always be on the lookout for that little symbol, the United States with the flag in it. And there's a lot of golf courses that also add valued items. So the more you know about that, the better. All right, another Together sale. This one was really nice. This was a vintage lamp. I got this a long time ago at I'm thinking maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And this was at a small little resale shop near my parents' house. Not branded at all, an independent store. And they get a lot of their merchandise from Salvation Army. So this lamp had kind of a rocket ship look to it. And just from the style and the plug, I knew this was vintage. I listed it high because the mid-century modern style has been in vogue for a few years, and it sold for $101. You know, it took a long time. It took 5 years, but I was happy with that. You know, sometimes I'll sit on things if it's a certain style. I know there's a lot of it out there, and you know, I probably paid $5 for it back then. All right, vacuum piece. So again, at the bins, vacuums are, I believe, $7. I'll pick them up and part them out sometimes if the whole vacuum isn't worth selling, or I just don't want to ship the whole vacuum. You know, it's exorbitantly expensive. I'll pick out pieces that are worth selling and sell them individually. So here's an example of that. This actually came from the same box of office supplies and pens that I got at that St. Vincent that I talked about earlier. These took a while to sell, you know, 2 or 3 years, but $50 for 2 sealed ballpoint pens, I'll take that. All right, so TVG horse racing hat. This is a bins find. You know, hats are super cheap at the bins. We're going 25 cents, 35 cents, something like that. So I'll pick them up if there's something good. I didn't know what TVG was. Obviously, you can see the silhouette of the horse. I looked it up because it was new tags, especially. It was the Game, which is another good hat brand. Turns out there's this, you know, surprisingly good demand for this hat. TVG is like a horse betting thing. And so it did well. It sold for $22.50, which for a baseball hat is pretty good. All right, Build-A-Bear, How to Train Your Dragon, Toothless Plush. So there's a lot of Build-A-Bear that are worth picking up. Do I think, you know, a lot of these How to Train Your Dragon ones are worth it? Probably not. I got this because I got it pretty cheap and because it had the saddle and the wings. And, you know, it sold for $18 plus shipping, which is great. In this for maybe $2, something like that, $2 or $3. This came from a thrift store, I want to say St. Vincent. All right, Rock Band, if you don't know, sells really well. Rock Band and Guitar Hero, drums, guitars, etc. can do really well. This drum set I think was picked up at the outlet, Goodwill outlets, probably $5, something like that, 5 to 10. And sold just the drum heads themselves, the top part of the drums, for $50. All right, so this actually came from my personal collection. So I used to be a big video game collector many years ago. I sold out of most of what I had. This is just the box for an original Game Boy in very good condition. I kind of had this in my basement, and you know, every so often I'll stumble across something that I just had laying around for a while, and I'll list it. And this is one of those cases. So sold, I put it up for auction, sold for the first bid of $100, one bid. I'm perfectly happy with that. You know, back in the day, I'm into this for maybe $5, $10 before the video game prices got as crazy as they are today. All right, another together sale. So this is the dock for a pair of headphones, Sony headphones. I got these at a yard sale and the headphones weren't working, unfortunately. I paid about $5 for them. So, I got my money back and made a little profit on them from the base. So happy with that. All right, Canon SureShot 85 zoom. So if you didn't know that film cameras, especially 35mm film cameras, not digital, are very in now. The photography is a huge hobby for a lot of people. So a lot of these cameras that don't look like anything or don't look fancy can sell quite well. So you can see this camera doesn't really look that special, but I was able to sell it for $50. And this was a bin find. So in this for a few bucks, $2-3, something like that. All right, Braun razor. So Braun tends to be a pretty good brand if you can find the razors and the charging docks and that sort of thing. Depending on which ones you have, obviously look up the models. They can do well. And this was a bin find for $29.99. Wasn't in too dirty of a condition. Sometimes I don't like to pick these up if they're just too grungy because I just don't like to take the time to clean them. But this one was okay, and it came with a charger in the case. So $29.99 for $1 or $2. Okay, so this is the platter, the rubber record holder for a Technics turntable. This is a case where I believe I just bought the platter. I had a opportunity to buy the whole turntable, and I wish I would have, because just the plastic cover on top of that would have sold for, I think it was like $50 or something like that. And I didn't really know that when I picked up this rubber platter. So just something to note is if there's a really good dust cover on top of a turntable, even if the turntable itself may not be worth it, it can hold value, or the rubber platter in this case. So paid maybe $1 or $2 for this, and it sold for $26, which is great. Another vacuum piece. So I think this was just loose in a bin at the pay-and-weigh. Probably $1 into this, maybe $2-3, and sold pretty quick. Okay, this is a pretty cool hat because it had a like a laminated wooden brim, which you don't see too often on baseball caps. It kind of drew my eye to it. Looked it up. It was a decent brand, and it was very clean, in good condition. I was able to sell this for $20, which is great for a hat. Another $20 hat sale. I will pick up items, hats, if it's a style if it's vintage and it's a style you just don't see very often. Denim does really well. I'll pick up pretty much anything denim that's vintage, especially if it's a weird oddball type thing. So into this for maybe 50 cents, sold for $20. I'll take it. PSP charger. So this was in a rat's nest of cords at the pay-and-weigh. Sometimes when I'm walking out of the store, I'll look through those to see if there's any valuable chargers that got mixed in with those. And that was the case with this. This is a PSP charger. Into it for less than $1 and sold for $13. I'm happy with that. All right, so this is another item from my collection. Back when I used to collect video games, I've been up for a while. There's this Paper Mario pin. This was worn in stores by employees to advertise the launch of these games for Nintendo 64. So this sold for $112, and then I also sold the Zelda one for $112. So, over $200 for 2 small button pins. That's great. Love it. I'm happy I've held on to these and didn't sell these earlier. All right, another pen from my pen lot that I picked up a few years back. This was a single one. It was the same brand as the 2-pack that sold for like 50, 60. This one sold for 30, and I have one more available. Sometimes things just have to sit a while too. I didn't sell either one of these types of pens for years, but then, maybe someone linked it in the forum, you never know. And then both of them sold. So I'm into this for, pennies, sold for 30. Baseball gloves. So the good thing about baseball gloves is a lot of them have model numbers on them. I know very little about baseball gloves. I know, the big brands, obviously, like Rollins. So if as long as it's a good brand, or Mizuno, if it's one of those good brand, or Wilson, if it's one of those good brands, I'll look up the model number and see if it's a good glove or not. And often they, hold some value. So this is, I think, believe a yard sale find, about $5 into 30. All right, Polo Ralph Lauren. So this is a duffel bag or a weekender bag. You often hear these called that. This isn't the reason it's sold for $29 or $30 as opposed to $100 is that this is a giveaway with Polo Ralph Lauren fragrances in the 90s. And I find these very often around where I'm at. I don't know if they're common all over the country or just in my local area, but I will constantly find the bags from this Polo Ralph Lauren fragrance giveaway, and I will pick them up the better ones from it, like this one because it's a weekender bag, and they'll sell for $30 just because of the cachet that the Polo brand has. So I always keep my eye out for these. They're usually made in Thailand, and you'll see a tag that says, 4 Polo Ralph Lauren fragrances somewhere else in them, and they'll have the pony on the front. So into this, I think this is at the bins. So into this for maybe $3. All right, Yeti cooler. So this is pretty cool. Yeti is a great brand for insulated tumblers. This is a lunchbox. It was just a regular kind of soft lunchbox, but since it was Yeti, I figured I'd pick it up and see if it held value, and it did. $50 for a regular lunchbox I thought was great. Obviously it's insulated, but it doesn't feel that fancy. And this is an item I found at the bins after everyone had kind of dug through that, or a lot of people had dug through that area. And sometimes it just helps to know brands, until you get this gut feeling on stuff like this. So $50 for a lunchbox, I'm happy with that. All right, so this is a mid-century bowl. It had this kind of swirly color pattern and these little starbursts in it, which are a real good giveaway of age. If you don't know a lot about mid-century, I would look into it. It's a very popular style and has been for a number of years here. And if you kind of get the giveaways of that style, you can find things, in that style that sell for a lot of money. This sold for only about $20. It wasn't marked on the bottom, but is able to use like the Google image identifier to find the same bowl. And it also had a lot of scratches too, but this came from the Goodwill outlets as well. But the nice thing about my Goodwill outlets is that glass is a cheaper price. I want to say it's like 20 cents a pound or something like that. So this was under 50 cents, this bowl, and sold for $20. All right, so this came from a regular Goodwill. So I don't like going to regular Goodwills as often because their prices have gotten outrageous. Honestly, all the regular thrift stores prices have gotten quite outrageous around me over the last few years. But I think this was around $8 or $9. I had just stopped in on one on my way home one day. And unfortunately, I could not get the battery compartment open. The screw was stripped and just stuck, and I could not get it out. So I had to sell this as untested and disclose that issue with it. This was, I believe, a Toys R Us exclusive, and was actually quite a desirable. A lot of For Real Friends hold good value. This one held a lot of value. I want to say if I would have been able to get it open and tested and it had been fully working, it would have been maybe a $70 or $80 one. But I'm happy to sell it for $40, and hopefully the buyer can figure out how to get that battery compartment open, or get that screw forced out, and hopefully it was working from them. I didn't hear anything back, so probably was. All right, this was an ideal Tony doll. I used Google image to kind of figure out what this doll was. Sold for $20. This is another vintage doll. I'll tend to pick up vintage dolls and look at them and try to figure them out because a lot of them do have good value. All right, Teva. So this is another brand. They make mainly sandals. You don't really see people talk about it as much as the big brands like Nike, but they can hold good value, like you see here. $50 for this pair of sandals. All right, this is great. I hadn't heard of this brand before, but I could just tell by picking them up that they have really good quality. This brand is called Mindel. They're German hunting boots. And one day, I went to the Goodwill outlet early. I was near the front of the line. I ran to the shoe section with all the other shoe people, and this one was sitting right on the top, and I was the first person to get to them. So very happy with this. $160 in them for maybe 10, 15. And you just need to know how to tell quality on items. The better eye you get for that, the more you're going to find stuff like this. All right, Nout is another brand. People don't talk about it much, but you get certain sandals, certain models, you can do quite well. So these Mounts women's sandals sold for $35. All right, Shark Rocket, another vacuum piece, another vacuum hose was loose in the bin at the pay and weigh. Paid maybe $3 for it, into 25. Build-A-Bear outfit. So I'll pick up unique looking Build-A-Bear outfits. You know, sometimes even if the bear is not worth it, the outfit can be worth it. And this one was actually, I believe, got purchased by my wife as the outfit only. And this was at a, I want to say it was at a St. Vincent. She probably paid, I want to say it was like $3 to $5 for this. Sold for $20 after maybe 2 years, something like that. So I was okay with that. All right, so sometimes I will pick up the full vacuum if the full vacuum is worth it and is easy to ship. This vacuum, I was able to disassemble it at the middle, so it actually shipped in a relatively small box. This first one sold for 100, and I think the second unit I sold for 75 or something like that. And these were at the Goodwill outlets. There were 2 of them in one box, and they were $7 each. So 7 into 100. This is a bronze. This is just the case for a Braun razor. You can see it sold for $11.24. It was at the bins into this for about a quarter. Now this, I have my wife to thank for this 100%. This pillow was from the pay and weigh. She threw it in her cart, brought it to me to look up, and it doesn't look super fancy from far away, but if you look close, it's actually, this is all embroidered onto the pillow. It's not printed on. So it's a really cool design. It has the name of the brand on the back, Cat Studio. You know, I looked at this up and I was shocked at how much these were going for. You know, they make pillows for different states, different universities, that sort of thing. So this one is for University of Kentucky, sold for $125 for a pillow. So, you know, these are the kind of things I just love to find because, you know, you just don't expect it. You know, these little stealth finds are just the best. All right, North Face Pivoter backpack. So the nice thing about North Face, they usually will have the model number, or not the model number, but the model name of the backpack printed on it somewhere. You can see here it was printed on it near the bottom. Sold for $35. This is another bin find. You know, North Face isn't as great of a brand as it used to be, but you can still find certain pieces that are worth it, like this. You know, also pick up the jackets. You know, the heavier the jacket, the better. Shoes can do really well. So I'd say keep an eye out for it. All right, so this is a vintage 1983 Rainbow Bright PVC figure. Sold for $13. This came from a bag at the pay and weigh for, you know, like I'm into this for maybe 25 cents. So I'm on the lookout for these vintage toys. This came from the same baggie, actually. It was a baggie full of different little miniatures. And these sold for $13. I lotted together all these Cabbage Patch Kids because they didn't really have much value individually. So that's something I tend to do. You know, if you pick up a lot of something, even if 1 or 2 isn't worth picking up, if you lot it all together, sometimes you know, make enough money to actually make it worth it. This came from a regular Goodwill. This is a chunky sweater. I think this is sometimes called a barrack sweater. It's kind of a ribbed wool from England. Sold for $50, which I'm perfectly happy with. Look out for, you know, leather patches, suede patches can add a lot of value to sweaters. This again came from a little toy baggie. I think maybe the same one as the other toys that I got at the Goodwill outlet. Sold for $13. These are Imaginext primarily. All right, and this is the final item. It's a Gemi floating animated ghost Halloween display. This came from a yard sale. I went to a yard sale in the urban area of my city, the more downtown area. They had a bunch of Halloween displays and decorations just sitting on a table, and they were really cheap. I think they wanted $1 each. I paid $1 for a whole stack of cardboard cutouts from the 80s and 90s. And $1 each for, you know, this and some other things. So this took a little while to sell, maybe 1.5 years, 2 years, but very happy with the sale price of 90. You know, it worked perfectly. When you kind of hang it like this, and when you turn on, the little skeleton guy will bounce up and down, and the light will turn on and it'll make noise. So pretty cool little display. You know, don't sleep on this kind of item. These Halloween decorations, Christmas decorations, you know, the more obscure, weird they are, the better they do. And I sell them all year round. All right, so that is the end of it. If you enjoyed this video, you know, please let me know. Please like and subscribe, and I will hopefully be making more of these. My next video will be about 7 days worth of sales, so hopefully it'll go a little faster. If you want any other type of video from me, let me know. I was thinking about creating some videos on what type of items I look for, how I evaluate the items, and how I source. So let me know if you're interested in that, and I will try and create those. So thank you. Have a great day.